Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. Sam Adams here, and I'm delighted to say that I am down on the Brighton seafront. Probably add some footage to this at the end with the one and only Simon Leslie. I'm going to let him introduce himself in a minute. This is another episode of the It Starts With You podcast. And more recently, I've been trying to connect and interview some high performers. But you all also know that I'm a massive sports fan. So today's guest kind of ticks all the boxes in terms of high performer and sport. So I'm going to let Simon introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us who you are, what you do, and yeah, anything else you want to share, really.
Today, I help and inspire young men to become professional footballers. Historically, I've been a media guy. I ran a big media company for 30 years. And I decided I needed to change and do something different, and I went and bought a soccer team. I keep happening in lots of American podcasts. You can see I bought a soccer team. I bought a football team, and now I'm on to my second manager in 5 months. So
right,
and I did everything I possibly could to try and make that manager a success, probably to my own detriment. And I'm determined to help every single one of those players achieve what they set out to be, and they wanted to be professional footballers. 90% of them have been let down by the game.
Yeah, it's brutal, isn't it? It's maybe hopefully we will come on to that in a little bit more depth as we talk. I guess, maybe let's start at the beginning, because you've obviously had a very successful career before you've got into football. People always want to hear about people's story and how because I don't know your full extent of your story. Obviously, I know a little bit about it, but where does it all start for you? Where you were raised? Where were you raised?
I grew up in Cardiff and moved to London when I was 13. So that's always a bit challenging when you come into a new city. Yeah, you're gonna make your mark. I think I punched somebody on my first day at school just to let them know that I was there.
Yeah.
I was never very good at school. I really wasn't. I was rubbish. And I left school at 17, and I started selling insurance door to door. And what I actually realised was I was quite good at telling stories, and that became what would make me success over years. And I had 3 or 4 failed businesses, and then I launched Inc. with my partner, then Michael Keating, and we turned that from a sort of generic publisher into the biggest travel media company in the world. We became the kings of the in-flight magazine, and that's what propelled us to success. And success is a really weird word, and I used to think success was going to the cinema in the middle of the afternoon, and I never did it. So I'm not sure if I was successful, but I enjoyed what most people look at success, profitable business, growing business, global business, and I built that up, and COVID killed it,
right?
And I rebuilt it again, and in that process, I think I killed myself. I lost the love for what I was doing because some partners were not as supportive of how big a turnaround that was. We went from 150 million March the 9th, 2020 to nothing on March the 10th. And that was quite brutal. And that 18 months of turning it around took everything, took every iota of me and my being out of me. And I didn't feel supported. And I think that's being more, I'm finding that useful right now because, I'm seeing some of these guys struggling, and I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to be on your own, fighting a battle where you feel like there's nobody behind you coming in to support you. And it's really important. And I think the work that you do is so valuable to organizations that they need people to support the leadership.
Absolutely,
all the way down.
Yeah, it gets missed. It gets missed a hell of a lot.
And I started doing it in about 2008. I was giving people coaches, having CBT, having sports psych. We did mental health before mental health was trending, right? before everyone did mental health.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's now it's gone completely. It's wrong the way it's being managed, the way it's being processed. It's becoming a quota. It's becoming something that we tick a box.
Tick a box, yeah.
And you're not doing it for the right reason, for the right place. And
yeah,
when you do that, you have an organisation which is just operating. There's no love. The staff don't feel the love. The employee
built on sand kind of thing it's the foundational part of it, isn't it? Well, like you, I've been in personal development for a long time, and before it was trendy, over 20 years, probably nearly 30. That's how old I'm getting. And I hate saying that. I'm like, bloody hell, I'm really old. But that's how long I've been into it, really. Sort of late 90s is the first time I really got into what I call personal development, and trying to manage my mindset and myself and my emotions, so well before it's trendy. But if we just step back to you in your career, how long did it how many businesses did you get through to get before Inc took off, or before Inc started, and then and how long did it really take for Inc to take off? And when you got to the point that you felt, what was the point you felt like, I'm successful from that as well?
So 96 we started Inc. And before then I'd had 3 or 4 business failures.
Big ones or
not really? I mean, I went into property in 88 and it coincided with the greatest crash of the 80s. But I survived 2 years, and I still attribute some of the stuff that I learned about myself then to surviving COVID.
Yeah.
Because I went back and thought about how I handled situations, how I thought about situations. I think within us, we have these threads of knowledge and experience. And even, we have them, we're born with them. And some people find them at 18, some people find them at 30. And
so on, yeah.
And I found it quite early, but I didn't realize I found it, right? So it was there, and it helped me battle that first business. And when COVID came along, I realized that was the key ingredient that I had, which was think about things differently. Just because everybody's doing something doesn't mean it's right. And what can I do, or how can I do things in a way that I'm going to get the result I want without upsetting too many people along the way?
Right.
When I started Inc in 96, we were working in Beirut, one little airline, and in Africa. So I was in Rwanda, Uganda, and I think a lot of my learning and growth has come from just because I lived in worked in lots of different places, and I traveled and I saw the world, and that definitely opened my eyes to growth. We didn't make any money until about 2002.
Right.
So that's 7 years of hand to mouth. I remember when we first started, we used to go to the chip shop at the end of the day, and whatever he had sold, he'd give us, and that's how we lived. I was talking to my son yesterday, and he's in his 3rd year of business, and I just said, you're like in the 1% club now. Most businesses fail in the first year, and the fact that you're doubling and doubling, is amazing. And I think people don't realize how hard it is to succeed in business.
Did you, when you started that business, was it what made you, because it's quite an unusual market, isn't it? It's not like, like everyone wants to be a property developer. You went into the media in the way that you did. What was the path to that? Was it something that you loved? Was it someone else came up with the idea? What was it?
Originally, when a friend of mine who we worked in door knocking together, he knocked on the door, and the guy goes, "Oh, darling, you're so attractive." And he turned out to became the face of KP Peanuts and Tango. So we started this business. He went around the world. He made a lot of money, went around the world traveling, blew the lot of it. The KP goes, "So we've got to start a media business." I found this little idea in Australia. So that's what started it.
Right.
We built it up. And then he came in one day and said, "I've fallen in love and emigrated to Australia." Like, "Oh, all right, then what am I supposed to do?" He goes, "Well, you can deal with this business." And then Michael came along and said, "Let's see, I've got this contract for this airline. Will you help me with it?" So it started by a complete accident.
Right.
I think we were just messing around really in the first couple of years. Just we didn't want to work for anybody else. Obviously, when you've had that many failures, everyone's saying you've got to get a proper job. It's a responsibility. But I always say to people in their 20s, it doesn't matter.
You're young.
Go and explore and have a go. And if it goes wrong, do it again.
Did you fall in love with it though? Did you fall in love with that type of business? Because there's a lot of talk these days. When if you think about entrepreneurship these days, and you look on LinkedIn and all the stuff, about what it is to be successful and finding your purpose and find your passion and follow that. Like obviously that wasn't you. There was no passion. Not unless I don't know about how you felt about purpose back then, but it was an idea and it kind of concocted and you were winging it really.
And I was traveling the world and I was saying, like, I remember being in Beirut and everyone's like thinking like I'm chained to a radiator or something. And I'm like, I'm having sushi and sitting by the pool drinking cocktails. What are you talking about? I'm having a great time. It's like there's a perception of a lot of countries. Rwanda was my favourite place.
Yeah.
After the genocide in 97, I drove around with one of the locals and there was no maps of the city. And we redrew the map of Kigali. That's started to me as one of the best things. That's the most successful things I've done in my career. We used to send bread ovens out and football kits and stuff. And, we used to give back to every community that we worked in. And, Rwanda is the poorest country in the world. So it's famous now for completely different reasons. But doing great business there. We started working with Rwanda Airlines, and we were doing stuff, and they had a small tourism market. And I think in my own little way, I was part of that that redevelopment. And then I started to realise that that's what we were doing. So. No, I didn't fall in love with the first, but then I started to fall in love with that. I went to the Philippines and tourism minister said, "I just want to thank you." And I went, "Thank me for what?" Because you don't realise, there's lights on the street. I said, "Yeah, because you pay for them." See, there's no rubbish on the street because you pay. I said, "When do I pay for it?" He goes, "Every time you bring a plane load of people in here, that's what's funding it." And I started to realise that, and you talk about purpose. What was
the impact.
My purpose wasn't I was making a magazine and some advertising. I was helping clear rubbish off the streets. I was helping lights. I was drawing maps. And all of a sudden it was more important. And then when you have one person doing that's great. But when you have 300 or 400 or 500 people all understanding that that's what their job is, and it's more than just a job. And when it is more than just a job, you don't mind doing it. When it's a job and you're just getting paid, if someone comes along and gives you a little bit more, off you go.
Yeah.
But I went through all those transitions because in the beginning it was how do we make more money? And then I got to about 40 years old, had a business, had a wife, had a house, had a car, had everything, had all the trapping, 4 kids. Trapping was that everyone says makes you happy, and I was as miserable as it could be. So then I went on this journey again to say, well, why am I miserable? What's going to make me happy? And I studied happiness, everything that was ever written on happiness and what makes people
You're like
happy.
me. I've done the same thing.
And it's very clear that it was having a cause that was bigger than you and doing something for other people. And I said, right, this is it now. It's one about leaving people better than they find them and helping other people achieve their dreams. Because if you do that, your life
you'll naturally it comes back to you, doesn't it? It's like, if you want to be wealthy, help someone else be wealthy. If you want to feel better, help someone else feel better. And
100%.
that's why I probably love what I do, because I help lift people up, feel better, do what they love, find what they love. The byproduct is that it makes me feel good. So you're absolutely right. It's a great way to kind of go through life. It's just help other people, and it naturally helps you as a byproduct. So did you think, like, so obviously you got to 40, your business is pretty damn good. Were you, what was it, I guess, what was the input for you to get a big business like that, daily input? Were you like working stupidly long hours? Were you, how much of a hustle were you? Because, we come from the hustle culture at years, right? Decades of that. Was that you?
Thatcherism, greed is good. And I started to dislike that, and I was working too hard, and I never stopped working too hard. I think hard work is the only ingredient that will make a huge difference.
Right.
And you can work smarter than that, but you still got to be, I was never the brightest candle in the room, but I'd last longer than all the others.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that was.
Did you think you were aware of that? Do you think you're, this is where I can outwin, because is it skill over will? Like they often think what skill over will is going to win out, but actually it doesn't, because you can have all the skill in the world, but if you haven't got the will and the discipline and the intent, that's not going to win out. The will override the skill.
If you keep turning up and knocking on someone's door saying, "Come on, let's do some business." Eventually they go, "Well, he must be doing something right. He still keeps turning up."
Yeah, my dad taught me that.
Yeah.
He's like, keep knocking on the doors. He always said that.
Keep turning up, keep turning up. And that's what it was. And I think longevity was the thing that made us successful, because at the beginning, everyone doubts you. You're a new kid. Everyone says, I won't be along for very long doing it the way they do it. And you just got to keep going. And then when you get to a point where you've been doing it so long, people look at you and go, must be doing something right, because they've been doing it forever. And actually, at that point, what I thought was success was actually not, because we got to about 2014 and it was a mess. 4 directors, all in different directions, all wanted different things. And there was a huge bust up, and 2 of them went. It's a whole book on it. So
right.
It's all in the book. But that was the other thing, is I documented everything. If anyone wanted to copy or replicate what I've done, as I wrote everything down from when I started right the way to the end of Turning Around Inc. We were in big trouble. Banks were trying to close us down.
Was that in 2014 you're talking about? Yeah.
Banks were trying to close us down. We've been consistent. We've been making 1 to 2 million every year and doing okay. And you think it's great. We survived that. We start again, Michael and myself. And from 2014 to 2020, double the profitability every year. By just being very like you've taken 20 years previous of everything we learned.
Yeah, all that experience.
And then went, right, how do we do this better? And it just catapulted. You can't learn that experience. You have to go.
You can't teach experience, can you? You have to have this. It's being in it. It's being in the trenches.
Somebody's experience. I mean, that's what I'm good at now. But you can't make you learn what you haven't learned, what you haven't done, and that's the bit that longevity will do. And that's why, I look at people now and they go, successful. I've been doing this 5 years. It's not even a season.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's scary sometimes, because I've worked for myself for over 20 years. Started off in property. I've still got a few bits of property now, and I've been a coach for, I don't know, maybe this is my 9th year, I think. But I was already mentoring and that before that. But sometimes I do think that, like last year was quite a difficult year for my business, and I also had some ill health from the year before, so that's had a knock-on effect. And I was only thinking that the other day. I was thinking, really, you haven't done a decade yet. But until you've done a decade, you can't really think, well, I've been at it a long time, like, because I think, oftentimes in the culture now is, a couple of years going to be really successful, but unless you've done a decade of anything, I know a few. I know obviously a lot of people in business and people that other people would look at successful. But it's probably taken them at least a decade to get to what other people perceive as successful from the outside. They're looking at them thinking, wow, you're successful. But they don't realise that for 10 years they've been in the trenches, barely making any money, scraping to get by. So for me, it's at least a decade. You've got to be at it and be prepared not to make a lot of money.
But it's not just a decade, because you could have a good decade where everything's gone right.
So in the property market, it's easy.
No problem, right? But then, is your decade include 2008? Did it include 2001? Did it include 2012 when all of Europe was going back? No, I mean, since 2012 to up until COVID, we had nothing. It was a fantastic run. And yeah, we make money in that period. But we never lost any money during those other ones either. Yeah. Because we were, we were good. And what happened was when the momentum really comes in, and it is just a momentum. The momentum works both ways. So it works if you're going upwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it's way quicker coming down. Way quicker.
And that's when people think momentum is only a one-way street, and it's not. And if you don't, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you start believing that not going to.
The end is here, and yeah, you're not going to make it.
And also, you get money, right? This is the biggest risk. You get money, and then you start living a scarcity mindset. You start living like worried about what happens if it runs out.
Was that you? Did you go through that kind of?
Since 2012, I said taps on. It's never going to stop. And now,
And is that because there's a lot of talk about money and wealth consciousness and money mindset, and yeah, a lot of people do get money and then they're literally like seize up and worried they're going to lose it all. Whereas for me, like I think about money, it's a flow like everything else. It's got to come and it's got to go.
spend it.
Yeah, that's like your attitude is about the flow rather
There's
than.
always more money. Money it's the lowest form of energy.
Hmm.
It's your energy. What's your energy like? How powerful is your energy? I'm an energy freak. Right? If my energy is good, everything else will be fine.
Yeah.
It will attract whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
And everybody I meet that's got this scarcity mindset, they live it.
Mm.
And then they said, I don't care that I don't have money because I know that I will attract what I need to attract at the right time.
Yeah.
And that's what ages of doing what you do.
Mm.
You know, it gives you a sense of confidence and a sense of belief
That I can do this again and I can do it better with more knowledge, more wisdom, and yeah. Do you think, if looking back, if you, I guess, because some people, you know, they want to get guidance from someone like yourself and all that wisdom and knowledge, but if you look back at what you've done over the last, I don't know how many years actually, did you say it was 30 years, I think? If you were to start again as that 17-year-old kid knocking on doors and then setting up Inc., what would you do differently? Would you do anything differently?
It's so funny you said that because last week I had Lightning Fiber, which is our local broadband network, and I offered to train there or talk to their sales team, their door knocking. I didn't realise it was a door knocking team, but it was a door knocking team came in, and as they finished, the manager had you in. A couple of guys go, and I said, you know what, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I said, because I wouldn't have, you know, it's only fear and courage, same as it is football, right? It's only those two things. If you've got no fear and you've got a bit of courage, I said, no problem. I said, you sponsor the club and I'll go out in your door knocking team for a couple of weeks. Doing that. And I think I'd be, I mean, I was good then. I did something that no one ever done before. I sold on my very first night out on the street. And the weird thing was, I kept selling. Every policy kept cancelling because on the first night I did it properly. I followed the script. I did what went through the process, and then I started to get cocky. And I think that's the biggest problem most people do. So I think they're good at something, and it's just they avoid the process and they just wing stuff.
Yeah. Staying humble. To be less cocky if you went back and did it again.
Keep it simple. What's the process? How do I need to? What does the most successful? I always say people find the most successful person and ask them what they do.
Yeah.
And hang around with them.
I'm always Aston Martin is my absolute favorite car, and I've never owned one, not yet. But if I see someone with Aston Martin and they're around, I always go and speak to them and like have a conversation because I want to know what they did to get that car. I was in Leeds Castle, took my daughter there. I think it was last year, and we were staying. They got some converted stables there, so we were staying. And I drove in, and there was an Aston Martin. I parked up, had a nice little look around it, and then in the morning, the guy was there. When I came out to my car, we were going out for the day, and I just stopped and had a good old chat with him, and was like, "What do you do?" You know, and he's like, "Oh, this is my third Aston Martin." I wanted to know. I'm interested and curious, and I think curiosity is one of the biggest things that could be in your favor, and that's what you've just described there. Really, it's like be curious about the people in the room that are more successful than you, that are doing what you want to do or have what you want to have. Be curious about those people and get in and have conversations and find out what it is they're doing and how they do it. This is why I like having conversations with people like you. I just love having these conversations because it's like, well, you know, you come from nothing and you've got to hear, how did you do it? Like, and especially now we're going to probably talk about sport because sport is my absolute love. And it's people just fascinate me, and knowing their story, because I'm still on that journey, really. I'm still, you know, I enjoy my life, and I say my life is successful because the biggest success in life is your happiness and your peace. Without that, everything's screwed anyway. Did you learn that along the way? Did you always think that, like, peace, happiness? Like you said it when you got to 40, you were like, I've studied everything around happiness. What was it? Were you thinking the money is the thing and big business is the
Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
It was, it was Wall Street. That's a Wall Street kid,
Mm,
Venture kid. It was green is good, and work hard, but the curiosity. If I talk about two qualities that I think every human should have, is curiosity
mm,
and noticing.
yeah.
Be a noticer. Notice what's going on around. Notice what people are wearing, what the hair is.
Mm,
Something that so people actually feel like
yeah.
you,
You,
you're engaged with
people
them.
are
Yeah.
yeah. It's not visibility, isn't it?
We live in a world where people are on the phone, seeing who else is in the room, and so it's like, no, just be present and be curious. Be really curious.
Yeah.
I think it's the most undervalued topic or
It's one that I love. That I love. Like you've hit two nails on the head in terms of curiosity and noticing. And I meditate, so I learned about noticing from
Yeah.
meditation, but because human beings want to feel seen and heard, that
Yeah.
is fundamental, and how we connect to humans is crucial for our well-being, our social connections, and like coming in here and noticing, like you say, that is so fundamental because we want at our core, we want to connect and we want to be seen and we want to feel understood.
Somebody put a comment on a post today. It wasn't particularly kind comment, and first I replied with just thank you for your feedback, which is my standard response.
Mm.
And then I wrote back, I thought, you've annoyed me, you've irritated me, so I'm going to irritate you now. I said, listen, I just want you to know that in your post, you must be an expert on human psychology, human behavior, recruitment, behavioral management, social media, and for someone to be such an expert in all those subjects, I want to hire you. So please DM me and I will hire you. And I'm serious. Because it was like, come on, I want to come into your business and say to you, by the way, I think you can run it better. Most people do, right? Because that's what criticism
Easy from
is.
the outside, isn't it?
They have no idea what's going on in a business, but everybody thinks they can run it better. And I think it's hard when you're in it, and you've got to be constantly looking at yourself and saying, well, how do I make it better? How do I do the things better? What's the feedback I'm getting? People are worried about their jobs. What happens is this self-preservation, right? I'm worried about losing my job because I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling anything, so I'm going to lose my job. And then you go around in this cycle, and before you know it, guess what? You've lost your job. What will stop you losing your job? Well, if I'm active, I'm making noise, and I'm going out there and I'm talking to people, and I'm doing what I'm paid to do, no one's ever going to fire you. But if you start worrying about, well, what happens if I don't sell? What if I don't do this, or I don't bring anything in, or I don't?
Yeah, it's that lack mentality, isn't it? It's the lack mindset.
And I see it everywhere I go, in every department. And it's like, just do what you get paid to do and do it better than you did. Do it a little bit better today than you did yesterday.
That's it.
That's success.
Yeah, no, I always say
the results. This is the thing that where people get confused. But I haven't sold anything. I haven't done anything. I haven't made a booking. All right, but let's get closer to that. I'm not measuring you on outcomes. I'm measuring you on how close you are to
But
improving it.
don't you think we live a life of like measured on outcomes, like success? When we're talking about success and someone looks at your business or your work, it's like it's all measured on outcomes. Like we'll get onto sport, and sport it's measured on trophies and accolades and
results.
It is, yeah, but that's 20% of it. If that, it's the bloody 80-90% that really, like you say, it's what are you doing day in, day out? What are what's your attitude like? How much effort you putting in? Because that's what at the end of the day gets you to the end. People just focus on the end and think when they get to the end, well, I'm going to feel this, I'm going to be this, I'm going to have this. Well, I've worked with top athletes, I've worked with football clubs, I've worked with corporate leaders. I'm telling you, when you get to the end of whatever it is, it ain't what they expect it to be, and it doesn't feel how they expected it to feel. And that's why that 80% really, that's where the focus has to be. And that's where the curiosity has to be.
Sportsmen's dinner the other week. There's 50, 60 Olympic medalists, absolute success, and then most of them broke.
Yeah.
I interviewed a dozen football managers this week. Broken men. And it's like, it's very hard when everything you do is based on results.
Yeah.
And your happiness is based on results.
On those results,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. It's trophy chasing, and we'll come on to football now, because obviously that's where you've moved into, and how you're going to maybe do it differently. I don't know. We'll see. But after all these years, you've now, decided recently to buy a football club, Eastbourne Borough. How long's it been now?
Officially since September,
Right.
unofficially since about June or July.
Right. I'm sure it's a long process, and it doesn't. Have you always had a love for
Very
sport?
long.
Actually, it's not when you think about it. If you say June to September, it's not. Yeah. Have you? Yeah. Sport.
I mean, I bought a TV network in 2018 at the airports, and we turned that into a sport in Trafford. So we had live American football. We had what else? We had the basketball. We had football. We had the World Cup. I did deals. I had rights deals on Wimbledon and the World Cup. So I've always sold against sport. So sport has always been a real passion for me, and there's always money associated with sport, but also the high performance, and
I love that.
I love the fact that high performance is a thing, and I want to see how far I can go, and how big I can take this, and how many people I can help along the way. And the outcomes is how big, when I say that, it's like, but it's how many people I can help along the way. The more people I help along the way, the bigger the outcome, and the more successful we'll be.
How did it all come about then, sort of? Because you've never been in football before,
No,
not bought a club, not run, suddenly you're, this point in your life, and you buy a football club. How did it come about?
I should have just hung my boots up and just wandered up and down the beach all day.
So you'd stepped away from
it away in March. I first saw the club in March, and I got there and went, wow. And I had been, I'm one of these people who believes in all this, manifesting. And apparently, and I don't even remember this conversation, one of my coaches, I sat with in Miami 2 years ago, and someone had come by a football team. I don't remember even saying that to him. And he says, "You are the greatest manifester in the world."
Yeah.
And then I started telling people I want to buy a football team. So I must have been out there doing that.
Speak it, think it, yeah.
And I was getting introduced to different people, and people saying to me, my Lord said to me, "You haven't got the money. You haven't got enough money. You're never able to do it." Proved him wrong, obviously. And I remind him of that regularly. You still haven't got enough money. I went, "Yeah, you're right." And I went to see about a dozen clubs ranging from League One through to where we are in National League South. What I realised was the higher you went up, there was two set in the ways, and they wouldn't change. So I needed to find a club where I could sort of, wipe the board and start again. And bring in all the things I wanted to do, which is help with the social media and the marketing, help the players go from part-time to full-time, put in the behaviours and infrastructure of a league club, because that's what I wanted to create. So from day one, I said, we're behaving like a League Two club. That's in the way the hotels we stay in. The coaches will employ the coaches, as in the buses that will take us there. We're not going to behave like a non-league team. We're going to behave like a league team, and it's expensive, but also it's a commitment to what your story is, and that's what the story is going to be. And I sold a player to Wolves. They announced it yesterday. So within so from August to December, in 4 months, I took a player who'd been rejected by Brighton and a few other clubs. In that time, be able to turn them around, to be able to get them to go. And the thing that people liked about him, he was a really nice kid, really nice way about him. There's a lot of toxicity in sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was incredibly positive. He learned so much over a short period of time, but also his performance improved, and he got a chance. Originally he was going to be put out on loan, and we you know, it'll be next year. But we got so many injuries. He got his opportunity, he took advantage. This is the thing, right? So many of those things are sliding doors.
Yeah, of course.
He goes out alone, it doesn't happen. We don't have the injuries, he doesn't get the performance. He gets the performance, he doesn't score. So he went through all these sliding doors. And we made amazing content about him. He scored something like 10 or 11 goals. We were just promoting him and his content. Guess what happens? All the scouts start thinking that gets noticed. The noticers notice it. And every game we've got scouts coming, and then it gets hard because he stops doing what's natural and starts thinking. And when you start thinking, then your performance changes and people come and go, not for us.
Yeah.
I have to bring him back down and say, just
Relax.
do what you're good at. Do what got you here. Even I had a conversation with him before he went to us. I said, look, you got all the way there to the top of the tree nearly. But if you don't do all the things that you did here, you'll be coming all the way back down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably on loan. And I said, I don't want to see you again. I want anyone else. I want to see you getting bigger and better. There's 3 players have left me, and I've said to all 3 of them, if you want me to coach you, mentor you, I will give you as much time as you need. Just WhatsApp me, and we would do it, because I want to see them all succeed. And the more people we can get into our club who say, well, actually, if you're going to invest in me, it's the right place to go. Yeah, I might get a bit more money up the road, or I might get this opportunity elsewhere. But there's something special going on in Eastbourne, and that's what I want to create, this sort of environment of success, of high performance, of rehab, and making people better and faster and quicker and smarter. And then if we do that and we create this place where people want to work here, want to be here, they're not just coming for the money, going back to the job thing.
Well, yeah, there's so much of that in football, isn't there? It's all about the money. It's like, well, I'm going to go here for the money or whatever. It's a culture thing, and you know, there's a lot of mental health challenges within the sport industry as a whole. And some of that is improving in some.
It's hard.
In
Kids
some
go away from home.
Like
some of them are young, and even some of the older ones away from home, away from the family, away from the
it's so hard.
network, living in the house.
And of course, like we think, you know, like I've worked with a couple of young footballers, and the thing is, you know, outside looking in, you think, you know, the kid's story, but you know, like I had like a young kid, two very similar kids, but one had a really solid home life. You know, parents supported, drove him everywhere, took him everywhere. He was outside of London. He lived in London, then he went to a club outside of London. Parents coming down every weekend. Another kid, single parent family. Parent didn't take him anywhere. Obviously, it was very difficult for her and stuff like that. You know, very varied, and he went off the rails a bit, but very, very different foundational beginnings and backgrounds of support that came from their home life. And of course, people don't see that when they look at these young sports people and they think, well, they're gone off the rails. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? But all that foundational stuff is so crucial to what shows up at the training ground, what shows up on the pitch. And people miss that. And they really miss that link of these young people.
But it's even deeper than that, right? They're coming in. So that's just one element of it, right?
Absolutely.
And then they come in and the coach don't pick them. Coach don't like them. All of a sudden, he likes him, but doesn't like him. And he talks to him, he doesn't talk to him in the same way. And you're going, you start, the victim mentality picks up, and then all of a sudden,
the spirals, like you say, it's that spiral down, and it's incredibly difficult. Like, you know, being in the sports arena and especially football it's
opinions, right? My opinion of him might be, I think he's great. His opinion is, got no chance.
And that young person or that person has to deal with that. A lot of criticism, a lot of heavy criticism. I don't know how most of them do it, to be honest with you. There's a lot of pressure from all angles, pressure of themselves, family, friends, management. Yeah, exactly. It's a tiny amount make it
too hard. I mean, the academy system is just broken. And I think it should be aborted, and they should put them all into men's football, and then their investments are the ones that they've nurtured. Remember, they're taking kids from 8 years old. Most of these kids at 18 they're getting released, right? So you're probably losing 80-90% of it at that point. And then 18 to 23 you're keeping a chunk more. But what's happening now is there's not enough decent kids. So kids are being kept in the system for way too long.
Right.
And they're never going to make
And
it.
they get this, yeah.
They're ever going to make it. They're not good enough. But because they need the numbers,
Right.
they're staying there too long. So this kid's been there since 18 to 23. How do you think they're going to feel at 23 when they're going, actually, there's no career for you? And they, if they're Brighton, and you say, oh, you now play Eastbourne Borough, and they go, oh, God, that's 5 leagues down. I don't want to do that. They're Brighton, and their perception of who they are was confused. And
yeah, absolutely. I've seen it loads. And is your vision for Eastbourne Borough then? You've only been in the role in a short space of time. What was your vision coming in, and has that changed in that short space of time?
No, vision was clear. I want to take people who have either been let down by football, failed, at
Other clubs,
at a higher level,
and
give them a second chance. I mean, we've got a striker who was at West Ham at 15, got probably one of the biggest contracts at 15. Too much money at 15, right?
Yeah.
What happens? He goes off the rail, then leaves football, gets it. Now he's 25 and he's gone, I just want to give it one more go.
Yeah.
And I just think, and we're struggling with him because he's incredibly positive, he's incredibly disciplined and fit and meticulous. There's something that's not quite gelling. New manager came in last week, loved him, talks him a different way. I saw a different angle of him this weekend. And maybe that's what it is. It's just, it's horses for courses. Some people will excel in certain environments. And I'm trying to create that environment.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? Yeah, how do you create, because everyone's an individual. And when you've got a football club and a football team, everybody is an individual. And getting that team to gel isn't just about those 11 players on the pitch. It's the backroom staff, it's obviously the people on the bench, it's the managers, the coaches, the physios, and all of that. And everyone's an individual. Yeah, absolutely. And we all need a hand holding at some point. It takes a village for all of us. How are you going to do that differently? Because I've done some, like I said, some international football with young 18-year-olds, and I don't know, it's it's incredibly difficult because you've got to get these people to gel. And for me, I feel like there's a lot of short-sightedness in football about the impact that everybody has on the people on the pitch. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the players on the pitch are the one that are going to get the trophies and the results for you. But I think there's a bit of short-sightedness around all of the little ripple effects and the noticing and the connections, who you have contact with, whether it's the physio or whatever, and the manager, the cleaner, whatever. I just feel like sometimes a lot of that goes unnoticed. I don't know what you think about that or how you're going to be doing it at Eastbourne Borough, because everyone is an individual.
I was at Arsenal yesterday, and I said to the lady sweeping the floor, "What do you do here?" She goes, "I'm a cleaner." I said, "You're not." She goes, "You're helping Arsenal win the league." And she looked at me and smiled. And I think it's so important. Everybody within the club needs to know what their role is. And that's why the vision is important. So at the beginning of the season, we all went to the Vale in Cardiff, and we had the Welsh team in trade.
Yeah, been up there.
Amazing facilities. And we absolutely got it. We won every pre-season game. We won the first 2 games of the season. And then it fell apart. And then you brought a lot of other players in, we had to bring loans in, everything. So we've lost all that culture. That stuff that we had at the beginning, which was we gelled as a group, we all had each other. For the first time, I saw it return on Saturday. And it's taken 6 months of hard work. And maybe a new manager coming in with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh set of optimism. But it is a constant battle. And the only way we can make it work is if everybody knows why they're here, what they're bringing to the business, to the club, and what part they play. And they need to understand they all have an important part to play. And it's my job.
But yeah, so how are we going to do that? Because it's a huge job.
The fish rots from the head, right? So I went in the room when we were and I brought Tim Grover in, who was Michael Jordan's coach. He did a session with them. We won a game or 2. right? Then it drops again, bring another coach in, we win the game or two. I'm like, you can't just keep having these sort of,
Yeah.
but a lot of it was injury related. And I said, listen, I realise I've let you guys down because I'm focusing on outcomes. This was a talk that I gave them, and I'm really sorry because I was worried about the results. I was worried about the manager. I wasn't worried about you.
Mm.
And I'm going to spend more and more time helping you fix your issues, and we'll get back on course. And I offered all of them. I said, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day you're off, I'm here all day. Come in and spend some time with me. One or two have now, and it's starting to feedback, and more of them are now saying, "Can I have an hour with you? Can I have an hour with you?" Because I needed one to understand how powerful that was. They don't know me from Adam, and they're just
Well, that's happens, doesn't it? You need someone to be, well, you're the leader, but you need someone to go, well, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Because then more and more people start to come, don't they? And then eventually everyone's like, they feel like they're the odd one out because they're not there. So they are like, well, we're going to do this as well.
I mean, there's no chairman or owners in this league that personally take people to Harley Street to help them rehabilitate, that go out there and find ways for them to repair, get cryo or whatever it is. I'm so committed to what I want to do that nothing's going to stop me.
Right.
And it's not going to be easy. You can't change them in the football in 5 months.
No.
But to have that success of getting the first player from non-league to the Premier League
in short space of time, yeah.
You know, that just shows you how committed and how it is possible, how everything that you want to do is possible. Now, it also opens another window, right, where you go, I'm better than you, ain't that good. Why am I good? And you get that sort of fair mentality.
Yeah.
And, making them all understand that I will get you all there, but he worked much harder than you guys. He put more effort in, he did more things.
And it's giving him that, helping him see that, have that mentality. Well, it's possible for him, it's possible for me. And
should be.
But that's how you have to, like I look at that in my world. It's like, well, they've done that. It's got to be possible for me. Depending on the things that you do, I suppose, how you go about it. But
I had a conversation with one player. I felt he was in football in terms of tossing it off most games, like throwing his arms up, not facing lost conversations and all that sort of thing. And I phoned him up the other day, and this is true. I've been obviously interviewing lots of managers from different leagues, and they said, he's your superstar. And I went, but he doesn't want to play. He doesn't, it's a 95-minute game, and he plays for 60, 70 of it. And he's just lost his whatever it's about because he's watching other people going, and he's thinking, I'm better than them. And he is. So I phoned him up and I said, I want to tell you something. He's not very man of many words. And I said, I just want to tell you this. And it was something of this really good conversation. I've never seen him play any better than he did on Saturday. For full 98 minutes. And I just think sometimes it's just those conversations. It's those, what will change his life? That conversation that just changed his life.
No, it is interesting because I worked with quite a high level club, and they brought me in. There wasn't this whole sing and dance about bringing me in. It was just bringing me in to be in the periphery, to have these almost like chance conversations that I'm in and around it, but I'm not. Well, I'll go and knock on the door of Sam Adams, and you can sit down and have a chat and talk about your life. It wasn't done like that, and it was the idea of someone else. It was very clever. It was the idea of somebody I'd done some work with a Premiership club. And it was his idea. It was a really good idea. And I think that's how it has to be done. It's like what you've done for that young man. In some ways, it's similar. That's what sparked me to think about that. It's that just, let's say, it's those conversations rather than making it super formal. It's just those small conversations can make a big difference. Now, I had it with it was a female athlete, Team GB, and we just had probably a 20-minute conversation, kind of off the cuff, really. And about a week later, she sent me a WhatsApp saying how much difference that had made to her week, her training, and her showing up. And so it's how you can, how you can have more of that. Like, how are you going to bring more of that into you? Because there is only you. I don't know what your setup is at Eastbourne, how many staff you've got or whatever. But I do think there's a place for something different to be done that needs to be done. And what I like about you is I think you're willing to look for those ways of doing it differently, because you can see that all the other ways really, how are we going to get this club to where I want it to be in this community, in this town? Because when we all rise, like rising tides lifts all ships, right?
Exactly.
It's like, so if we can do this in a community way and help every individual, you're going to get the town on board, you're going to get the community on board, and everyone's going to rise with it.
I think it's the biggest town in the country not to have a professional football.
Is it?
Yeah. 125,000 people live in Eastbourne, the surrounding areas. That's big.
Yeah.
I
never knew that.
You think someone like Bolton or Wigan or something, I don't think they're as big a towns as that.
No.
And so there is so much potential there. There's so much opportunity there, and it needs. I can't do this alone. Like I said, it's a village, right? And we've all got to get behind it. And I had a battle over Christmas with the fans forum, and they're slacking off the players and saying sack the manager. And fair enough. Once I sacked him, they all sort of say you sacked him too early. I'm like, can't let him win. But and they kept saying, and I kept saying, just people read this, family members read it. It's just not very nice. And everyone does it. And I went, just because everyone does it doesn't make it right. I said, and because people are not doing things doesn't make it wrong. And you'll get. I was getting some feedback from some of the positive ones on there, and they're going, "You're so right." We've become a culture of just keyboard warriors.
Yeah, and because everyone else does it, this is how we're going to do it. And oftentimes it's the one that's going to go off the beaten track and do it differently, which I sense is what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
That will have the, because my coach always says to me about coaching and building a coaching business is like, don't go and do what all the other coaches are doing. It's just too many of them doing like that. Is it working? Are you seeing wealthy coaches out there? Are you seeing these coaches that are doing, dealing with all the clients that they want to be dealing with? And I'm like, well, not really. It's like, don't do exactly the opposite.
Find your niche and charge more than everybody else is charging. One of my biggest success stories was about 2012. We had this product which we devised, which would sell ads on boarding passes, and the airlines were also to print their own boarding passes because they were trying to save money. And we were selling the ads on the bottom of them for £1,000, whatever the price was, and everyone was doing it at that price. And BA was better than EasyJet, therefore people would go with BA rather than EasyJet. Whatever it was, we just couldn't sell it. It wasn't making any money. I brought this guy in called Robin Phillips, and he said to me, right, let's do it differently. So what should we do? He goes, let's 10x the price. I said, what? Let's make it 30 pence, make it £3 rather than 10p. And I went, we can't sell it 10p, how are we going to sell it £3? Let's have a go. That business still today, and to tell me actually, in November it was still the best performing business. What's that? 12 years later, 12 years later, and we still sell it at that price. And guess what? Everybody else still sells it at a cheap price, right?
Different. You're different, and it will you stand out.
Also, if something's got value, people will pay for it. People buy a Dior jacket because it says Dior, right? It's the same quality as probably made in the same factory as a Zara jacket, but it says Dior on it, therefore it's worth £2,000 more. And is your story commensurate with your price? And if it's not, then you'll get your story is however good your story is, that's what price you'll get for it. But it's having the confidence of people around you who are going to say to you, let's try something different. And I don't think that we're trying. We actually banned it in every office. We're not trying. We're just going to do it.
Yeah.
We're not going to attempt stuff. We're going to do things, and we're going to do them better than everybody else does them. And if you do that, you'll get the results. I don't think it's a coincidence that I've had this success for 4 months. People looked at me and they laughed when I told them that at the beginning. They're laughing now, are they? Because I've done what I said I was going to do, and that's that manifestation. Oh,
I love a bit of manifestation. I believe in vibrational energy, and I think we've spoken about that a little bit before. It's like what you put out and how you show up. That, like why are we having a conversation? Why, I've got another conversation with another football owner tomorrow. It's like, your energy and what you connect with and who you talk with, everything has an impact.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be very aware of what you're speaking out into the world, that energy that you're putting out into the world, that you're thinking, the mental images that you have, all of that is part of manifestation.
3 words: available, awake, and aware. Because this whole magical thing is that if things are passing, thoughts are passing through us all the time, and if you don't pay attention to them,
awareness is your
go somewhere
absolute friend. Like,
someone else will go and
first thing I
idea.
teach is like when I'm working with a client, I've got a new corporate client, and she's got massive business, and but it's it never, well, it always amazes me really how little awareness that this person has got, yet they've been running this multi-million pound business for years, or 2 businesses, and but the lack of awareness is unbelievable. And it's personal growth and personal development 101. It's number 1 thing on the list. Like, you've got to have some awareness. You've got to start waking up and having awareness of how you're showing up, how you're thinking, the mental images that are going on in your brain, what you're putting out into the world, and catching yourself, like when you went to the team and you said, look, hey, I'm sorry. That's super powerful awareness. Like, a lot of people just think, nah, pass them by. But you had the awareness to go, fucked up, or I'm sorry. Do you know what I mean? It's, awareness is like, I love talking about awareness.
I think it's vulnerability as well. People need to understand that you're human. When you're in this ivory tower, you've got no idea what it's like to be poor. You've got no idea. Fish and chips for 2.5 years for free. So I know what it's like to be on your backside, and I also know what it's like to be incredibly successful and have everything paid for you. And I'm now in this in-between space where I don't have an income. I've got probably the world and his wife waiting and watching for me to fail.
Of course.
Right, to go, told you so. Because, by the way, 100% of everyone said, don't do it. Don't do this. Don't do it. This is a stupid idea. You're just going to lose money in football. No one makes any money in football. I'm not doing it to make money. I'm doing it because I genuinely believe it's a good cause. And I always say to people, create a cause to believe in and be a leader to trust. If your team don't trust you or believe in you, you can pay them with all the money in the world.
It's incredibly difficult. And if you look at Wrexham, what's happened at Wrexham? Okay, they've got, I don't know their business. I don't know how much money that these guys have put into Wrexham. Maybe so, but they've created a community. It's a brand and it's a community, and they're bringing the people along with them. Like, nobody really heard of Wrexham apart from the people of Wrexham before they came along. And okay,
Put it into a tourist destination.
And
it's not a nice place. I'm Welsh, so I can say it's not a nice place. Eastbourne is a really nice place.
It's a beautiful place,
and it's not recognised around the world as a nice place. But Wrexham has more tourism dollars now than probably most of North Wales.
What have they done for that town and the people in the community? And so, like I say, when the tide rises, all the boats get
Wrexham
lifted.
Brewery, Wrexham Coffee. They're probably making Wrexham gin. All these businesses have come off the back of what those guys have brought into it. And, we have so many. We've got a cool brewery in Eastbourne. We've got Rathfinny, which is one of the best sparkling wines in the world. But it's on every Michelin star table. That was his goal, to get the wine on that table, and it's made less than a mile from the football club. Maybe 2 miles. And I just think to myself, no one's telling the story. No one, the tourism board.
And I think that's just a story, isn't it? If you look at Wrexham, it is a story. Okay, we've got 2 Hollywood actors. I get that, but it's still a story nonetheless. And they've made the most out of that story, and they've taken advantage of that. And I get, and like, so it's like hearing you talk about the story of Eastbourne, and obviously your links to media. Like, you surely your goal and part of this whole process is creating a story that people really latch onto, that community can get behind, because that will, you bring them along with you for the ride, and you need them and they need you, and it can change a whole, change a whole community.
So let's challenge that, right? If Ryan and Rob decided tomorrow to sell their business to XYZ Corporation, would it be as successful? Would anyone care? Probably not. And the reason that's successful is because those 2 guys have managed to attract so much big business and big sponsorship. But in a good story, the characters go on beyond the story.
Yeah.
And that's what I need to build over the next couple of years, is build the characters up. Make sure that characters have got their own story to tell.
And those stories get told and they get out into the public. And yeah, because everyone's going to latch on to someone different within the club. And so you've got to have all these different stories, because what I see in someone else who's from Eastbourne isn't going to see that or whatever. So it's telling the stories of everybody and trying to share, which is a big task, but it's sharing that with the community to get the community involved, because everyone wants to see something in themselves in the club or you know, in the people of the club.
Example in business of that as well. So 2008 financial crisis, the airlines are going bust. And I've been courting United for probably since 2000. Come and work with us. And they were like, you only work with these low-cost airlines. We're not interested in working with you. No interest at all. And slowly but surely we started to win. We won. We didn't win Virgin too much later, but I think we won Etihad and Singapore Airlines. We had some flag carriers in our stable. And the guy phoned me from United. He goes, right, there's an opportunity, Simon. You've been banging my door for so long. I want an offer. This is the offer I've got now. Beat that offer, and it's yours. And I said, don't be so silly. You're going to go through a tender. He goes, no. He said, we're in shit. We've got to do it. And I said, I'm going to fly over. And we won the contract. And the first meeting, we're having this brainstorm meeting about the magazine. So what do you like about the magazine? Because I've no idea, never even look at it. It's the guy that's managing it. And I said, look, I don't mind, but I've done an analysis of your magazine with post-it notes, so you can go for it and you can see what I think you don't. But I don't think anyone's been paying any attention, quite honestly. I said, but this is what I'd like to do. He goes, you know, it's mad. This magazine's been 40 years. No one's really, they love it because it's been around for so long, but no one really cared about it in the way that I cared about it. And he goes, why do you want to work with us? I said, what do you mean, why do I work with you? And we're just a shitty American Airlines. And I went, you're the fourth biggest airline in the world. And it would be an honor to work with you. And he goes, and everyone around the table had the same perception of the business they were in.
Wow, yeah.
And
they were in it.
And people say to me, why are you supporting? I'm like, why not? It's by the seaside, it's by the South Downs. It's beautiful. It's an absolute jewel. And they go, so I think people don't realise what they've got until someone comes along and shapes it differently. We turned that magazine, it won every award. It was earning double of every other in-flight magazine in America. It is the only one that's left in America right now. It's the only in-flight magazine left. And I think a lot of that stems from 2008 when we started saying, this is what this magazine is going to be about, and we're going to make it the best in-flight magazine in the world. And I think that's what I would do with this one. The problem is, I've been there 4 months. And okay, I've achieved some amazing things in 4 months. Imagine what I'm going to achieve in 4 years.
Yeah, but the thing with sport, time is short. And fans are impatient. I mean, let's just got, you know, I'm conscious of time, but I just like, if you look at football already and your short tenure there, you're on your second manager.
Yeah.
Time, you know, time is.
And I'm gutted about that. Really am gutted about that. But that it's like the first team that I did when I launched the business. It's not the same team. I mean, some of them are still there.
Well, sorry, I'm not aware of this. Was the manager there when you took the club?
No.
So you brought him in. Okay.
So actually, it's my third manager.
Right. Okay.
The first one I didn't believe could do what I wanted to do, and I thought the second one could, and he didn't either. But he definitely cared for the players, and he definitely gave everything. He didn't have any management experience of managing a football team.
Right.
I mean, he's probably one of the best coaches in the league, but he lacked that little bit of
player management,
or whatever you want to call it. But that was me wanting to help him excel and become. That was his first managerial experience.
And so, the future. What does the future look like for you and
I think it's
Eastbourne?
bloody rosy.
Because you gone from a huge media company and business to a football club. How similar or dissimilar is that?
Well, the thing with sport is you can't get, if you have a bad week in business, you can make it up next week. You can never get those 3 points back. Right. So there is infinite rules, whereas in business the rule it's not. It's an infinite game. Whereas
Right.
it's finite. Sorry, in sport, you got 90 minutes, you got 11 players. Those are the rules. I can't change that. So I've got to keep making sure that those 11, 15 players who play every week are as fit as they possibly are. They've got the best resources and facilities so they can live to the maximum of their capacity. I've got to make sure that the people managing them and coaching them and inspiring them are doing a good enough job. And that's what I can control. Everything else is out of my control.
Right. And that's your focus.
So I'm going to keep focusing on bringing brilliant partners in, bringing brilliant coaches in, bringing people in who are going to make life better for these guys and girls. We've got 36 teams. It's not just one team. The problem is everyone focuses on the one team.
The men's team. And that is one of my final questions is all of the other teams that are part of Eastbourne Borough, because you have a women's team. So it's easy to focus on the men's team, but where, I'm curious to know of your plans for the other teams of the club.
I mean, when I also set the women's manager, I brought in a new women's manager who has been unbelievable. He's had 7 games in, he's won 6 and won 5, drawn 1, lost 1, and they beat the team that's completely unbeaten in the league this weekend. So, and we brought in new players. My commitment will be a league team for the men and a Super League team for the women. And the women's team are moving at slightly better odds and pace than the men's team, but the commitment is to make sure that they both are.
And is that a
supported.
that's a mental commitment, obviously, but is that a financial commitment as well? Because I focus a lot on the women's game in terms of from a personal point. My work has always been with the men's team actually, but from a personal point of view, I follow the women's game quite closely. I know a lot of people that work in the women's game, and we all know about the underinvestment. We all know about all the bullshit that's gone on over the last 50 years. You look at Lewis, what they're doing over there as a club. How is Eastbourne going to be? What is your commitment to the women and the girls of Eastbourne Borough?
What Lewis did was when they said they're going to pay the women the same as the men, they just dropped the men's wages. So they didn't actually elevate the women; they just brought the men's down.
But there's equal investment. Like if there is equal investment into those.
I mean, they're trying to sell off the women's side and not the men's side.
Yeah, it's not happening now, but
and that's fallen through. So, but for me, there was no investment in the women's team. There was no players who were getting paid. There are today players getting paid. The budgets for women's football, and you're never going to get the sponsors you get for men's football at the moment. I don't believe that, by the way. I think there's just as much money in women's football as there is in men's football.
Surely the growth has got to be, in
the next 2 years, you're going to see more money coming into it.
Yeah, it's going to be
huge. And I'm talking to a women's football team in Germany, a women's football team in Spain, and they're slightly ahead of on the non-league side. So I'm getting good feedback on the type of deals that they're doing. We will have proper sponsors for our women's team next year. And once you get the sponsors, then you can attract more players. We've got an ex-Chelsea, an ex-Arsenal, an ex-Lioness. So we're already attracting. Okay, towards the end of their career, but we're attracting.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But that's how it has to be.
We're way below Lewis in terms of league status, but that's Lewis for me is my aspiration. I want to do what Lewis have done. I will do it and I'll achieve it because I've said it now, and that's where I see amazing growth and amazing potential. And I think we scored 32 goals. Let me concede 31, but they score a lot. They won 7s and 8s nils. It's still fun football. It's not serious enough yet, but we're taking it incredibly seriously, and because of that, I think we'll start jumping up the leagues. I think the women's team will achieve the status I want ahead of the men.
Yeah. Good to know, because that's Well,
so you should come support them. You know, and I would say that to anyone listening to this is that I want more and more people to come and help and support me. I can't do this on my own. You know, and I haven't got buckets loads of budget, but if people really want to get involved and make a difference, to genuinely make a difference to people's lives, I think I've got an opportunity where people can do that and really help.
Yeah, that comes across, Simon. It really does. And it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. So thank you for our conversation. I wish you every success.
Thank you. And as I said, everything I've done right up to 2023 is in those two books. No F in Sales and Equanimity. And so
go get those books.
I just want to finish with this one story. I can't remember who it was. And he said, I visualized, and I was driving my car, and whoever it was, the three greats were in the back of the car that I was driving. And then one day, oh, I've got goosebumps on this, right? And then one day I turned around and looked at my mirror, and they were all three were sitting there, and I went, I've actually achieved what I set out to do. And I do think that sometimes you can't get close to people. You can buy things, or you watch things, or listen to things that they talk, and that way you can get to know them. And you know, and I know that when I've reached out to anybody, and that's what the second book was about. It was 52 people who came to help me.
Amazing.
Because I got to April, May of 2020 again. How the hell am I going to do this? So I started writing to people and saying, look, I'm really struggling, and would you come and talk to my team for an hour? And 50 people said yes, and
brilliant.
And so I diarised that whole thing of saying, these are the people, this is what happened when they came in. And what I realised was actually it wasn't helping my team, but it was giving me the courage to be able to sort of
and survive. You did, and look at you now. Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you very much.